are listening to Trophy.
I do all the intros.
I was gonna say, I didn't want to get uppity with our guests, but with you, Tricky, I'll get uppity all the time.
Oh, thanks. He brings the awesome. It's I yield to no one.
Hey, everybody. I'm glad to be back. And as always, the Sony Pony is leading the show.
I'm not the only Sony pony in this place, okay? So let's just be clear.
No, hold on here. Let me check. Yeah, you are.
Negative. And we have a very special guest. She is a true friend of mine, even though she works for the dark side of the Force. It's Ro. How are you?
I'm good. Hi, everybody. Glad to be back on the show.
Ro, I'm going to give you a few minutes. I didn't tell you about this, so I'm going to put you on the spot. I'm going to give you a few minutes to explain to our listeners who you are, what you do, so we can be transparent, and because there's going to be a topic later in the show that you're obviously not going to be able to talk about.
Yes.
So I want to be upfront with our listeners to, so they know what you do, and then also what you do on the internets as well. So
absolutely.
The floor is yours.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much, Tricky, for giving me the time. I am BC Rowe. I am one half of Black and Pat that streams on Twitch. Formerly the Esh Cash, which was a podcast that I did for 13 years with my sister on video games, tech gadgets, and anime from a uniquely Black perspective. And now on Black and Pat, we play a bunch of different games that we enjoy with the community, but we also do a podcast, which right now is on hiatus, but is coming back, called The Tribunal, where we talk about the entertainment industry through the lens of diversity, representation, and inclusion, because those issues are near and dear to my heart for many reasons that you guys who are viewing this can see. Additionally, professionally, for the thing that pays for all my goodies and whatnot here, I work in games marketing at Xbox, and I have been there for almost a year and a half now, which is amazing, and I primarily work on Bethesda titles and marketing them. So there's a bunch of titles that are out there right now that I may have worked on their global marketing campaigns. So yeah, that's who I am. That's what I do. I'm a big nerd, and yeah, let's talk about some stuff.
I was going to say, I was pretty sure I saw Rochelle's name in the credits for a rather big game recently, so...
Yes. It's very nice to see my name credited there, because I had no idea that it was going to happen. And then I found out that I've been credited in a few other games as well, so I'm like, hey, look at me. How many more before I can get an IMDb page?
All right, listeners, get started on that. Make her IMDb page now. Get her Wikipedia page as well. I tried to start a Wikipedia page for Proving Gamer, and we got denied.
Yeah, I tried to start one for Ash, and same thing. So I was like, you know what? I don't even need to be on your wikis anyway. So
they said we didn't have enough credible sources. I'm like, a website that's been around for 12 years, a podcast has been around for just as long, but that's not a credible source. It's not like we just started a page and like, oh, let's get on Wikipedia, sound false information and scam people.
Oh, you got 100 followers on YouTube? You think you deserve a wiki page?
Yeah. Ro, just so you know, you are literally the second person only that we've ever done this for. But if you look on Twitch, I put up all our PSN profile cards and say our trophies. I did not do that for you. I gave you a gamer card.
Oh, damn. I'm so touched.
So, Ro has her own gamer card.
It's because my PSN card is pretty lame.
Well, that, and you also have your trophies hidden, so.
Yeah, listen, so the short story about that really quickly is that about 4 or 5 years ago, I actually had a really bad stalker on PSN, and
what's his name?
Reported,
let me know.
We don't need to do that. Reported all kinds of stuff, and nothing really happened. And so I just went nuclear on my account and locked it all the way the hell down. So that's why.
Well, I didn't mean to bring up bad times.
It's okay. It's all good. It's not trauma. Sometimes you just have to like block out the world for your own safety and harmony.
I just thought it was because you're working for the evil empire now that you don't want anything showing that you have a PlayStation.
No, it's not like that at all.
Rochelle doesn't work for EA.
Yeah,
Talking about
really.
Evil Empire.
No.
I didn't say the evil empire. I said the evil empire. Is EA even considered the worst team or the worst studio now? Game company?
We also have to remember that since Roe does work for Microsoft, she probably can't be saying stuff about third-party partners. I don't know. Maybe just for a long time EA did carry that name, that tag, but these days I don't know. People may see them too inept to be evil. John Riccatello is no longer there, so he's fucking things up for Unity. So maybe they don't dislike EA as much as people think. Hey, they did give us Dead Space remake. That's pretty awesome, right?
Dead Space remake is awesome.
Sure.
Scared the absolute patootie out of me. Can't play it, but I watch people play it and go, ah.
That's when you know you got a good survival horror game.
Yeah,
And again, I will say, even when people know it's not real and they can't get hurt by it, but yet they still get so like intimidated by it, that's pretty good work. Sound design, scary monsters, it all works pretty well in Dead Space. That's why it's the best remake of the year. I said it. Best remake of the year.
I think the last scary game I played was Inside. Was it Inside?
Yeah, I mean that's a thriller horror game. The one where
I walked all the way to the right and then got impaled by a spider leg, and I was like, all right, I'm done.
It's Limbo.
Oh, Limbo, that's what it was.
Inside is also made by that team, by Playdead, I'm pretty sure. But you're thinking of Limbo.
Yeah, I walked all the way to the right side of the screen. Big spider leg came out and impaled me. I was like, all right, I'm done with this game.
Thought you were going to say Kill with Fire, Tricky.
No, I'm not playing that game.
It was recently on sale. You get to take out all of your frustration and anger on the spiders.
Yeah, but I have to look at spiders.
Mm-hmm. I'm with you on that, Tricky. I don't deal with spiders. I'm actually allergic to spider venom. They make me physically ill if they bite me. So just no spiders, no creepy crawly things. Just no.
I told my daughter if I see a spider in my house, we're just going to have to burn the house down and start all over.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Fair.
So don't be getting into any insurance fraud schemes.
I heard nothing.
I just heard a bunch of beeps. I heard Charlie Brown's teacher for a second. All right,
let's. You were going to burn your house down if you had a saw spider. I heard it all.
Tricky, we're trying to keep you from admitting to crimes on the podcast. That's not a good look.
Listen, I've done worse on this show.
Oh, I can admit to that.
Yeah. I think we talked about it at the end of last week's show. Or in the after chat.
It was in the after chat. I was more talking about the Audi situation.
That's what I was talking about.
Yeah, the mirror.
See, I tried to keep it.
That you sent to heaven.
I tried to keep it general, and you just like, well, fuck it, just right out in the open.
Then don't mention a car because
don't.
No,
don't.
Yiel did it perfect. Yield's like, yep, that's what I was talking about, and that's where it could have ended. Nope. Alex had to go. You mean the mirror?
You literally said it on the show. Play by play what happened.
Yeah, you did.
If anyone screwed you, Tricky,
it's yourself.
Yeah.
Bro, help me.
I didn't listen to the show, so I don't have a informed opinion to share.
See, there you go. Why don't you tell Ro the story, and then she
all I will say is, friends don't out friends. I'm just saying, plausible deniability.
Thank you. Updated trophy counts. I am level 891, total trophies of 29,225 with 811 platinums. I have a new platinum. Alex?
Well, I guess we'll get to that when we talk about what we've been playing, huh, Tricky?
It's probably some rat spam.
That's probably how...
I know which game you got a platinum in because you shared it on the...
that's how we've been doing it for 592 episodes already.
That is absolutely not how we've done it for 592 episodes. We've waxed and waned on that.
That is true.
We'll keep charging forward on this one. I am level 495 with a total trophy count of 9,404 with a platinum count of 160 in 159 games. On the verge of yet another one, but not quite.
Yield.
502 is the trophy count of 9827 and a platinum count of 176.
I've been tasked by Matt G to report that he is level 218, total trophies of 1,277 with 0 plats, and he was ashamed to say that he earned 4 trophies, 2 of them for literally just walking forward in a game. He was so embarrassed he didn't want to be on the show. He said that he was taking the week off because he was in such embarrassment that he got 2 trophies for walking forward. So,
Yeah.
Ro, your trophy count.
That's hilarious. All right, let's do this. So I am level 160 with 546 trophies and no plats.
We got to work on that, Ro.
No, we
Wait,
don't.
hold on. You put a gamer card up for her, but you didn't give her the gamer score? You didn't try to find her gamer score?
I was literally about to ask her what her gamer score was.
Oh, it's over 40,000. It's somewhere in there. My problem is I have multiple handles. So I have the handle that I stream on, and then I have my personal handle, and my personal handle is much higher than my stream handle.
Look at her being all fancy with her handles. Sid,
Hey, you got to separate church and state, man.
Sid is
Yes, you do. Yes, you do.
Sid is level 875, total trophies of 25,792 with 814 platinums. That's mofo passed me again. I'm going to have to... I might have to turn on the PlayStation 5 and get 4 plats just sitting here while we record just so I can finish the show in the lead again.
The last time you said that, it took you almost a week to pass him.
You know what?
Them's fighting words.
I hope you
That's
just
fine.
heard... I hope you just heard the PlayStation turned on.
I called him out the last time. He showed me his screen. He was earning trophies as we were recording. About halfway in, he gave up, and then like a week later, he's like, "Look, they said it couldn't be done. I passed Sid," and it was like, "It took you long enough." What are you talking about? He tries to defend himself, and we're all like, "No, you said you were going to do it during the show." So yeah, I'm going to call you out again. You need 3.
I tried to help.
And you got to keep the show moving.
That's fine. I'm just setting up the camera so you can see this happen in real time.
I'm not going to watch it.
I had to drop the agenda down to the camera, so hold on. Back to the agenda. All right, Alex, what have you been playing, sir?
Well, like I said, the usual Rocket League. We got a day or so left in the double XP event, so I'm trying to hit that hard to get my Rocket Pass up, so I have to do less work on the back end when it comes to the season and getting XP and getting rewards. So been playing a little bit of that every day, but really the meat is where I've been spending most of my time is Darksiders Genesis, and I've beaten the game, gone through on the normal run, beaten a couple levels on Apocalyptic, basically just doing trophy cleanup at this point. I beat Wicked Killington, who makes his return as a mini boss or a secret boss in this game as well. And in Darksiders Genesis, like obviously it's a prequel, so to the first game. So by the end of this game, it's like, hey, you're basically sending war off to Earth to continue on with the first Darksiders game. But Samael, Abaddon, and Volgrim, like all these characters are there, so it's good. It's good. It feels like home. Like even though it's a different style, it's changed up the gameplay, which I think fits really well for pairing Strife and War together and doing a co-op experience. It's good to see all these characters back and have Volgrim be the shopkeeper, so I can hear him say all his creepy things while I give him souls and boatman coins to strengthen my character. But overall, I really like Darksiders Genesis. It's nice to see them pivot off of Darksiders 3, which was a disappointment of a game. And hopefully this game was successful enough to lead to a 5th game. I don't know, but the game was done by former vets of Vigil Games. They started Airship Syndicate, which did this, and I don't know how to pronounce his name. Joe, I'll have to look it up, but the guy who basically started Vigil Games, was the head of Vigil Games, also is the head of Airship Syndicate. So the people who made the Darksiders series in the first place were also behind this game. So it was just nice to see the how much they just wanted to get the 4th game out. They could have stopped at 3, they could have actually stopped at 2, but they've gotten 4 games out. So I feel like they've done right by the series in the end. So I was glad to see that. All right. And again, it is co-op, so if anyone wants to play it, I do have it. It's on PlayStation Plus Extra, so if you need help, I can totally help you. So
I got into that game, but I stopped playing it maybe an hour or 2 in. I don't remember why.
It is a Metroidvania style game, so it's not as bad as like Jedi Fallen Order, where you have these big open spaces and you have to remember exactly where to go. Like this game, like it pops like icons on the maps. Like there's a dungeon map for every area. So when you find a dungeon map, it shows you locations of all the collectibles and everything. So you'll know where you have to go back. But you will have to go back to a level at least twice, every level, or most levels at least twice to get everything, because you do get to a point later in the game, chapter 11 or 12, where you finally have all of the powers and you can go back to say like level 2 to get everything. So I'm not a huge fan of the Metroidvania style games, but in this game it works just well. It works better than say Axiom Verge 2 and in Jedi Fallen Order, because the game basically tells you where all the collectibles are, so you don't have to do a giant seek and find. The guy's name, and I will butcher this, but Joe Madureira, like I said, but he's the guy who's huge in visual games and is running Airship Syndicate. So good to see the people of Vigil are continuing on, and even though THQ closed, that they can still do their work and make good games. I really enjoy that. People can pivot and still be successful, so that's awesome. Yield, sir. Rather short little spiel from me this week. What have you been playing?
Not much over the last couple of weeks. I closed it. Oh, there it is. Played some Sniper Elite 5s, helped Nitro get his last multiplayer trophy, and then he helped me get mine. I fired up Deep Rock Galactic, played a little bit of that, a little bit of Rocket League, some Borderlands, the pre-sequel, worked on that Friday, and still doing mop-up on Red Dead 2. Getting 100% is taxing, to say the least. But
well, yes, it's a Rockstar game. Grand Theft Auto, Red Dead. I feel like you know what you're signing up for before you even play those games.
Yeah, but this one's way more than what Red Dead was. Like, Red Dead wasn't bad. This one is way more involved when it comes to...
They figure they got to keep you playing the game so you don't get tired of it. They want you to stay on it and play it for as long as you possibly can. It's got to be over 100 hours for the Platinum Trophy in Red Dead 2, right?
Oh, absolutely. I think I'm pushing 300 over the years.
Oh, 300.
I think.
Now we're getting into just like what Valhalla territory there with yeah, that's a lot. Anything else, Yield?
Nope, that's it.
And Ro, what have you playing, dear?
Yeah, so I've been playing Starfield and then also Starfield. I think I have probably at this point, I don't know, what is 12 days map out to? Like pushing 315 hours.
Let me get out the old calculator. So yeah, 288.
Yeah. So it's out there.
You're asking you're asking Alex to do math. That's
Listen, I don't have a calculator and I don't math. I tell great stories. That's what I do. Just ask my credit score. I'm really bad at balancing out a checkbook. I've got a ridiculous amount of time in that game. I'm probably, when all said and done, probably gonna do 5 New Game Plus runs. So I'm probably gonna tap out at about 500 hours in the game total, and then I'll switch over to Mirage because I love Assassin's Creed and I really, really, really want Mirage to be what I've been missing in that franchise. So that's what's up next. But right now, I'm in space a lot.
Yeah, I started playing Mirage myself. Not too far into it right now, but sorry, trying to find the next game real quick.
Focus, Chicky.
Sorry. But I've been playing Humanity. Have any of you guys played Humanity yet?
I have not. No. But it was a PlayStation Plus game, was it not, recently?
Yeah, I believe it was one of the games we got on day one, too.
An essential PlayStation Plus essential free game?
Yeah, I believe it was. I'm not totally sure. That and the new season for The Division came out when they dropped a new incursion. So I've been trying to work my way through that. Man, that thing's hard as balls.
Even for you? Like, I thought you were topped out as far as experience and levels go, and you were helping people grind 30 levels in one go.
It don't matter. I right now I can't even get past the second boss in the incursion. So, and yield.
Yes.
I just passed Sid.
Okay.
Dude, before the end of the show, I did it before we're done. We'll talk about what we're playing.
Yeah, I'd be proud of that.
I am proud of it.
Okay, you're the only one.
But I got the platinum in humanity. It's a fun little puzzler. Like it makes you think, and I'm very proud to say that I only had to use one guide video. And that's only because I had to use the guide video because the game explains to you what you have to do. But there was one level where it did not explain the new power and exactly what it did. So you had to start the level and then figure out the power as it goes. But you would lose so quickly if you didn't know how to use that power immediately that I kept dying. So I didn't even have a chance to learn. And after about failing it 20 times, I was like, all right, let me just look up to see exactly like how to get my foot in the tip my toe in the water so I can at least figure out what to do. But really good game. Really makes you think. And I'm very proud that I was able to get through all of them. Only using the one guide video. And I mean, there's a good story in there too, which is weird, but to say that, but there's a really good story in there. But yeah, I've already started on the PlayStation 4 version of it because I love the game so much that I'm going back through that. And like I said, I was playing Mirage. My one gripe about Mirage is they kept the attack button as R1. And I don't like that. I'm finding the combat to be a little harder this time. Maybe that's just because I haven't played an Assassin's Creed game in a while, and I'm not used to the fights. Because in the old style Assassin's Creed games, there was always you parry. You know, everybody gets in a circle, and you basically wait for somebody to attack. You parry them, and then you kill them. This one, as you're fighting one dude, 6 dudes behind you are swinging away. And it's hard to wait for the guy that you're fighting to parry him when you got to dodge the 6 guys behind you.
So it's more like Ghost of Tsushima, where if you go into, it's not like, they feed you. It's like if you go into a group of people and you try to fuck around, you'll find out and they'll mess you up.
Yeah, but see, Ghost of Tsushima is different than the fact that like if I'm facing one dude and the dude behind me goes to attack, I can hit the parry button and it will parry the guy in the back. Like you automatically switch to that guy. It doesn't do that. It only focuses on the guy you're facing. So you basically have to dodge out of the way. And the problem is that when you dodge out of the way, yeah, now you're out of danger, but now they go and circle you again. So you can't focus just on the guy in front of you and wait for an opening because you got 6 guys behind you. I mean, it's realistic. Don't get me wrong. I mean, it's like this is the way fighting should be in the game. It's like an AI should not wait for you to say, okay, after you're done killing that guy, then I'll fight you. No, like your back's turned to me. Let me take the cheap shot. But it's just, I understand I'm explaining the first world problem, but it's annoying right now. But as I get into it and more involved in it, I'll probably understand the mechanics as I get more powerful, get more health, because now I'm dying in 3 hits. But, as you level up, you'll get more experience, you'll get more health, you get more perks. I'll be able to shoot, throw a knife to distract this guy while I kill that guy, or, be able to shoot a bow and arrow from far away. Now it just seems like every time I try to quietly assassinate somebody, there's always a guy looking in that direction. So you got to assassinate that guy, then you got to go run, find a hiding spot, go back. Right now it's just annoying. But this is the way Assassin's Creed games are. They're very slow to get started. But once you get started, they become a lot of fun.
Well, you could always go back to Brotherhood, where you could call a group of assassins to drop in and do your dirty work for you in public. And that was awesome. But I don't think it's been done since Assassin's Creed Brotherhood.
Well, the problem is this is going back to the early days of Assassins, where there wasn't a Brotherhood. It's just a bunch of ragtag people saying, hey, maybe we should do something about these people that are over there doing evil.
Yeah, I'm interested to see if you think this was the right direction for the series. I know they're coming out with multiple games, but I do want to get your opinion as you get further into the game, whether they should have kept going with the way they did, or if Mirage is what they should have done and gone and scaled it back and gone back to I guess more to the roots than what they had expanded to.
I'm interested to see it too, but what I'm more interested in is it's got to be over a year ago, year and a half ago, they announced I forget what they officially called it, but the Assassin's Creed hub, where they essentially said every Assassin's Creed game is going to link into this hub, so they all have a connecting story. And Harley's over there making a lot of noise, so I apologize. You just decided to wake up and chase her tail. Yeah, I'm more interested to find out how this is going to work with the hub when they officially announced that, because they did say Mirage was going to be the first game attached to the hub. So I'm interested to see how they're going to do that. But yeah, I'm really having fun with Assassin's Creed, having a lot of fun with humanity, and having a lot of fun with the Division right now. They announced that there's going to be more to it, so more coming down the road. So I'm excited about that. Looks like we're finally going to get some story answers in the Division that we haven't had before. So, also I found out, I didn't know this, Division 2 is apparently on PlayStation Plus, so you can play for free if you guys want.
Wait, what is?
Division 2.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I thought you were saying Assassin's Creed. I'm like, yeah, most of the Assassin's Creed games are free on PlayStation Plus, but
well, eventually they be. Not
yeah,
Mirage.
I mean, you cannot go play Mirage now for free on PlayStation Plus, but like you go back and look at all like at the list of them, it's pretty incredible. Like 3 or Black Flag 3, like there's a whole bunch on there.
I think, and sorry, might have to correct me, but I think that if you have Ubisoft Plus, it is free. Did they announce day and date with Ubisoft Plus? I don't remember.
I haven't paid enough attention to Ubisoft Plus, but they do have Ubisoft Plus Classics on the PlayStation Plus, so.
I never really paid much attention to it because it's only PC, so, and I'd rather play my games on the PlayStation. Okay, so Kalis is in the chat. He says, "Hi, homies," and he says, "I just want another Watch Dogs." I don't think Alex or Yield. I don't think you played Watch Dogs like the newer ones, right? Yield, I know you just got the platinum in the first one, but you haven't played 2 or Legion yet, right?
I have to. I haven't gotten to it yet, and I have, as of right now, no desire to play Legion.
Really?
Yeah.
Legion, I thought, was the best one so far.
They didn't do it for me with their trailers, and yeah, didn't sell me on it.
Kayla says you make him sad.
Oh, sorry. I'm not saying I won't play it. I'm just saying they didn't sell me on it.
Ro, are you a Watch Dogs person?
I am. I didn't finish 1. I found it to be really boring. I didn't play 2. I did pick up Legion because the announced piece for it and then some of the subsequent pieces that they came out with, like, made it look like it would be my type of game. I think I put less than 10 hours into Legion trying to fall in love with it, and I just couldn't. I just could not, and so I bounced out, so I never finished it. I actually took it off my console.
Yeah, that storage space is precious, so you have to do what you gotta do.
Well, I have 3 terabytes on my main box, but I was just disgusted with the game. I was like, out, damn spot.
Both Kalis and Dex says Watch Dogs 2 was the best. So, I like Legions better than 2, but that's just me. But I could see the argument for 2 being the best one. All right, so let's get into our topics. If I can find my agenda where I put it. There we did. Our first topic is PlayStation confirms there was a breach of over 7,000 employees' personal info. This is coming from VideoGamesChronicle.com and written by Chris Sculliton. Sculition. Sorry if I pronounced your name wrong. Unfortunately, we don't have Matt this week, so we don't have Matt's abbreviated notes. So we get to go back to Alex and Neil's favorite activity, me reading articles.
Or you could just read the articles ahead of time and just paraphrase.
I could have, but I want to be like you and not read the agenda until showtime.
That would be what a responsible host would do.
As reported by Bleeping Computer, the PlayStation maker has been contacted those affected and let them know what happened. According to Sony, the breach involved a Move It file transfer platform used by an SIE employee, which developed by third-party IT developer Progress Software. Progress announced on May 31st that it discovered a vulnerability in their software, but 3 days before this, an unauthorized actor had already used the vulnerability to download SIE files, accessing personal information for 6,791 current and former employees based in the United States. Sony claims the incident was limited to this particular software platform and had no impact on its other systems. So I'm going to stop reading there because the rest of it's just, reiterating the same things. So initially when this report came out, Yield, I'm going to go to you first because me and you had the conversation that, we don't even know if this is real because Sony hasn't announced anything. And it was, thought that this was affecting the gamers, but apparently it's only the employees that were affected. So, Yield, I open the floor to you, sir, about this new hack.
Well, I guess it's a good thing that we all jumped to the conclusion of change your passwords right away.
Yeah.
I really don't have anything. It's going to happen. You're a big corporation. You're pissing people off. They're going to come after you.
And let's be honest, every corporation in the world, every big corporation in the world, they're fighting off hacks and hackers all the time. How many times have you gotten a letter in the mail saying, hey, our systems were breached, here's a free year of identity theft protection, and you didn't hear anything else besides that. So,
I mean, it hasn't happened to me recently. It has happened in the past with other companies. I mean, it's good. It sucks for the employees, and hopefully nobody's financial data's out there, but it's still not a good look for Sony when you've been hacked twice, regardless of what they got. People still don't like to see that. Just a friendly reminder, make sure that whatever sign-in you have for PlayStation or Xbox or whatever is make up a unique one, and don't have it be the same thing as your bank data.
I'm sure.
Or your bank passwords.
I'm sure Sony has been hacked a lot more than twice. This is just the second time we've heard about it.
Do you think? Yeah, it's not still got not good news. It still doesn't make Sony look good, but it seems like it's not anything touching the consumers, and we can all breathe. But yeah, just keep an eye. Just maybe change your password every once in a while, just to keep people on their toes.
Ro, your thoughts on the hack?
It's unfortunately, right? For any business, it doesn't matter. And it doesn't matter whose data is taken. When you have insecurities that pop up, it's always going to create problems, right? And nothing's foolproof because you have human error and all kinds of things, right? This came because somebody was using a third-party app that they probably weren't supposed to install anyway, but there weren't any stopgaps from keeping them to do it, and that gave somebody an in, right? And anytime you give people an in, somebody's going to find a way to breach it, right? People love their 5 minutes of fame of being able to say, I got in and I got all this data and now I'm going to ransom it off and all those kinds of things. Sometimes people suck. And it's really unfortunate. I echo everything that's been said. I really hope that these employees' information that was able to be grabbed isn't detrimental. I hope that, all kinds of stopgaps are being put in place to protect those people's information. It's absolutely important to use unique passwords. I know I can't tell you how pissed off I get when I see, you got to create a password and it's got to be 15 characters long and you need to use these special characters and you got to have a capital. But that stuff does matter, and you definitely want to use unique things, right? I think there's maybe 2 accounts I have that have a similar password but not the same, and I change my passwords every 6 months. It's a pain in the ass. I hate doing it, but I do need to keep myself safe because in the cyber world, it's way too easy to make something that looks like something else and to get into trouble. So I hope that with, the ransomware attacks that we've seen, this now happening, that it's just flagging enough to Sony that, hey, we need to make sure that we are doing our due diligence to keep our information safe, both for our employers and our customers.
Yeah, and two-factor authentication is a good way to go as well. If they offer that, it's definitely the way to go because anytime somebody tries to log on to something, even if they have my password, they still can't get in because they don't have the code that got sent to my phone. So unless they got my password and cloned my phone somehow, they're not getting in. So, I know some people particularly don't like two-factor authentication because it makes things harder. But to me, I'd rather have that and know, if I'm at work and somebody's trying to get into my Google account and also it's like, oh, did you try to access this? I'm like, no. I can't immediately run to a computer to change the password. I know that they're stopped, and I just got to remember later to go change the password. JT's in the chat. He also subscribed, so thank you. JT, you've been a subscriber for 61 months. That's incredible. That's 5 years that you've been a subscriber. That's incredible. And he says you kind of should have it. I'm assuming he means the
two-factor.
Two-factor.
Yeah.
All right.
Also, if you missed last week's episode, JT was on the show last week. JT and Rick, so go back and listen if you missed it.
Yes. The next article we have is coming from IGN, written by Taylor Lyles. Tim Sweeney has admitted that Epic Games had financial problems 10 weeks prior to the studio layoffs. This was revealed at Unreal Fest earlier this week. In a post on the social media platform X, spotted by Polygon, user Immature Gamer X uploaded a video recorded during one of those sessions available on the first day of the annual conference focused on Unreal Engine. However, the session was not included in the live streams available to the public. Sweeney elaborated more on Epic's financial woes that led to the company laying off 830 employees late last month. Sweeney explained that the management became aware of how dire their financial difficulties were just 10 weeks before the announcement. Quote, "This wasn't a right sizing. I think we're in the right size. I love our original plans. This was a survival move based on that was necessary, and what we did accomplished. One thing is we stabilized our finances so we won't run out of money as we build the metaverse." End quote. While Sweeney did not speak freely about the change in Epic's financial struggles, he admitted that the company heavily relied on Fortnite's revenue in recent years. It's not a complete surprise, as Fortnite has been one of Epic's most profitable properties. In 2021, it was reported that the popular free-to-play Battle Royale had made $9 billion in 2 years and had 400 million registered users at the time. All right, Ro, I'm going to go to you first on this because I know how Alex and Yield already feel about Fortnite, and we kind of touched on layoffs. I think we touched on the layoffs last week or the week before. So, Ro, the floor is yours.
So layoffs aren't fun. They're never fun. Both from the perspective of the person that could possibly be laid off, or from an organizational standpoint, right? It's balancing of numbers on a sheet devoid of the personal emotion, and I hate it, and I hate being part of it, and I don't think that anybody enjoys it. And it's really hard when you hear numbers like how profitable Fortnite is to hear that there are economic woes. But there are, right? Because there are so many costs of being a studio, a publisher, maintaining code bases, especially when you have something that can be played in cloud. Like, the costs become astronomical to the point where, like, $1 billion doesn't go as far as, like, it used to. And it's crazy to say because it's hard to fathom that kind of money, but it's true. And so I feel bad for everybody that has been laid off. Like, it's a hard time in games right now. We've had a lot of games ship and come out, and then conversely, a couple of weeks later, hearing big numbers of layoffs or studios being closed. So it's a real scary time right now. I'm not a fan of Fortnite, but I am absolutely a fan of, like, what it's accomplished. What it's done for the free-to-play space has been amazing. And, I don't like restructures. I hope that it's true that what Sweeney is saying, and that the changes that they've made now have put them in a place where they are going to be solvent and they are going to be secure for, the future. But that's what everyone says after a layoff. So I always take that language as, this is the comms and HR approved statement that you, senior person, can say.
Sorry. Alex, the floor is yours.
I mean, the only thing I really have to say is that, of course, you had financial problems, Tim Sweeney. I would assume so. Why did you lay off so many people otherwise? Like, it's kind of like, this makes sense. And, you know, it doesn't surprise, sometimes I feel like I'm surprised that people are so open and candid, but at the same time, I'm not, because otherwise, if you don't say this and you just lay off a bunch of people, you look like a dick. So in some ways, you got to be open about it. So, yeah, again, if you didn't have financial problems, why did you lay off a bunch of people? So it just makes sense. It's kind of like, sure, whatever, makes sense.
Yield.
I am in a minority, but I think some dark times are coming for video games.
Do you want to elaborate on that, or?
We went from a buyer's war, so to speak, where everybody was selling themselves to stay afloat, and now everybody is laying everybody off. You've got stuff we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about it later. Did you put it in the show? Yeah, you did.
Yay me.
It's not good for the industry, and I got this feeling that I want to say it's going to crash. I think that might be a little dramatic, but I think warning signs are out there.
All right, see, maybe I'm in the minority here, and obviously I'm not in the boardrooms, but it sounds to me like if you're making $9 billion over the course of 2 years, you could have made changes to keep 830 employees and just suffered the losses for a while. And I know that's not good business sense and whatnot, but let's be real. Fortnite is basically printed money for them right now.
Well, Tricky, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but that's just from Fortnite, the $9 billion. You're not talking about the Unreal Engine or anything like that. You're just talking about one thing. So they didn't just make $9 billion over 2 years.
No, I'm saying
that's just for one revenue stream.
No, I'm saying if you're making $9 billion over 2 years just from Fortnite, and it sounds to me like you could have made changes that kept these employees. Now, if these employees were redundant in some fashion where they weren't really helping the productivity, I understand that. But you come out and say we have financial woes, that we were basically running our business the wrong way, we were losing money. It sounds to me like you could have fixed the problems and kept the employees. And, I don't know. Like, I know what I'm trying to say, but it's not coming out properly. It's like, I think they could have found a way to keep these employees and make changes at the same time. It sounds to me like they just said, you know what? We're not going to accept losses for a while, even though our game is highly popular. And it's the biggest battle royale in the world right now. This is crazy that you have to lay off. I think it was 840 employees. I said
it was 16% of their workforce.
830 employees. That's insane that you laid off that many people.
Well, and that's not redundancies. You wouldn't have that many redundancies. The only way that would happen is if you were merging two massive companies and you were looking to get in, like you had with the TKO merger with WBE and Endeavor. Like if you had a social media department or an HR department, you just wanted to mash everything into one, and you had two massive companies coming together. But yeah, 800 people, like that kind of redundancies as far as like Epic goes, there's no way that happened.
Well, I excuse my ignorance here, but besides Fortnite, what is Epic making right now?
I would have to look that up because I am not entirely sure.
I mean, obviously they have the Unreal Engine. I got that. And they're making a lot of money.
Well, they run the Epic Game Store as well, which is one of the big PC platforms.
Yeah, and they're giving away 2 free games every week too. So,
are they free or are they?
No, they're free. You don't have to have
PlayStation. Are they free or are they PlayStation free?
No, they're free. You don't have to have any kind of subscription to them. So, yeah, I mean, like I'm not in their boardroom, obviously. But
well, they did buy Psyonix, so they own Rocket League technically,
and they also own Harmonix as well. I don't know.
I don't know. It's sorry to interrupt. It's just tough because like there's the stuff that we think about on the surface, right? And then there's all the other costs that like for the most part, like as a consumer, you don't think about. But in running a store, there's a ridiculous amount of people, a ridiculous amount of legal, there's a ridiculous amount of support. Like there are a lot of costs that are involved just in maintaining kind of things. And if you aren't paying attention, especially when you've acquired so many different things, and frankly, people are not necessarily being as forthcoming with how poorly their piece of the business may be doing until it's too late, it's hard to rectify when you're running, right? Like if the store isn't doing very well because between licensing of what they're giving away in the hopes of having rebounding customers and they don't rebound, they don't come back, they don't increase their spend, then you're running at a loss leader. If you think that you can bring it back in 6 months, so it's like, hey, let's hold off on like pushing this until we see where we are in 6 months, and now you're 6 months down the road and oh man, not only did it not get better, it's gotten worse. It's hard to correct quickly. Like and this is not me defending at all because I personally not a fan of Disney. But it's difficult when you're a monolith and you're so big to be nimble. And that's the problem with like in general, across the board, in every industry, big companies, right? Like a smaller company, you can make a decision because it takes 3 people to be like, yep, let's do this and let's go. In a larger company, you now have hundreds of people that have to sign off on something and agree on the thing before you can move forward in it. So, you know, I don't know where like the financial losses are coming from. Is it from, you know, hey, we plateau, right? Because so many companies in general, especially when they're doing anything that's subscription based, will be like, all we got to do is just get more users. As long as we get more users, then we'll make more money, profits, without going, you have a finite amount of people that you are going to move on to your subscription service. You have a finite amount of people that you're primarily going to sell your thing to in the first 6 months, in the first year of it existing, right? Like it is finite. So what's your plan beyond the finite that's sustainable? But people get so caught up in the immediate and the tangible that when they get to the sustain and they don't have a plan and they've plateaued, we throw everything at everything, right? Like the biggest excuse that I've heard across every industry that's laying off is, oh man, yeah, we ballooned up too much during the pandemic, you know, because people were working from home and we got people cheaper. And, you know, now that's not the case. And, oh man, like we got all these people on our books and we're not turning the profits that we used to. And so, we've got to lay off. And I hate that that's a solution because it shouldn't be a solution. But it is a solution that lets you be nimble. And it sucks.
And you brought up the pandemic and, you know, people working from home. I was having a conversation with somebody who I'm not going to name because, you know, I confide in them and they confide in me, and you know, we don't talk about these things. But they said that one of the things when the pandemic started and everybody working from home, he was worried he was going to be laid off or fired because essentially, you know, the game development studio had to pay for their building, their rent, their space, all that stuff, and it wasn't being used. And that was just a cost that they couldn't recoup because everybody was working from home. The talking, you know, to have a conversation and say, hey, I'm having problems on level 3, you know, Grandma's Boy reference there. You know, they couldn't just walk over to the next desk and say, hey, can you give me a hand with this? They had to send an email or get them on the phone and whatnot. And he says, and the game development, you know, not that it went to a crawl, but it slowed down because it wasn't as easy as just walking to the next desk and saying, hey, I'm having a problem with this, or hey, can you help me with this, or whatever the case may be. So he was worried that because of the finances and everybody working from home, everybody was still getting paid the same, obviously, because, you know, that was their salaries and their contracts. But production slowed down. So something that may have only taken, and I'm just throwing a number out here, 6 months to develop was now taking 9 months to a year to develop. And that's 6 more months, 3 to 6 more months. They weren't making a profit on the game that they were working on before they could start working on the next game. So they were always talking about, you know, is this possibly, you know, we're going to lose our jobs because once we go back to the office, if they go back to the office, you know, what's it going to be like? Who's going to be there? And yeah, they were hiring more people, like you said, Ro, because, well, you could work from home. You don't have to be here. So it was a lot easier to recruit people because instead of saying, hey, everybody's got to move to San Francisco to develop on this game. No, stay in Minnesota and work on the game and just, email us over or put it in the Dropbox or whatever the case may be. So that the pandemic, I think, us coming out of the pandemic, we're going to hear a lot more stories about layoffs. I mean, even in this agenda, we got, 3 or 4 topics talking about layoffs? Like, I was putting this agenda together, and I'm like, everything that we're talking about is layoffs. It was a struggle to find something that didn't talk about some somber person losing their job. But yeah, I think that's where we're at. I mean, it's just, right now, I think we're going to be hearing layoffs for at least another month or two, and
yeah, and it sucks, but it's also the time when it happens, right? Because for many companies, you're coming up on their end of year, so it's when balancing of the books is the most important, right? And it sucks because you're going into holiday, so the worst time to get laid off in any industry is right before the holidays, where it's time for giving gifts and all those kinds of things, at least in North America, right? So like it's really tough, but I think that you hit the nail on the head, at least for me, like as I look at it, is there's just a lot of folks that are now coming out of the pandemic. I mean, the games that we've gotten this year all were, frankly, in my mind, like catch up of like people delivering stuff now that more folks were going back to the office. There are more ability for people to actually be deving, because like as much as you can make a pretty decent home office, you're not going to have, like, unless you're very, very lucky in a very good metropolitan area, you're not going to have super high speed internet. And let's, face it, like a lot of files that you're having to move around are hundreds and hundreds of gigs, right? So how much productivity do you lose because you're on a home high speed internet getting capped by Comcast, assholes, right? Like, all the time, it definitely slows down your production, right? To your point, like you can't just hop over and be like, oh man, like I'm having problems with this debugger. Like now I'm having to make a meeting. We're having to like get on the same schedules, and then we're screen sharing, and like there's so much complexity that's added to that. Now that we're coming back out of it, and people are, either hybrid or they're back in office, able to actually get back to the rhythms that they're used to. That's why I think you saw the slew of games that like hit us in the last year, which have been, fantastic to run through, right? But at the same time, now it's like, okay, well, now we got to pay the piper, because what do our payrolls look like? For all those people, we have benefits, we have external costs. Like everybody that built a home office, almost every company had to provide you some kind of money for that home office that they're not recouping. You talk about business, building space, you absolutely can't recoup that. And because there aren't a lot of businesses popping up, it's not like you can repurpose that space to re-rent it out or sublet it out to make those dollars back, right? And so without getting into and knowing, like, again, where their deficiencies were being driven by, it's hard to say, okay, was there a way to solve this before having to cut 800 people? I think that there was. But there's some cut that was going to happen, whether it was 400 people or 800 people, and that's just at Epic, right? You look around the industry, so many different publishers, studios that are, and they don't want to say it, but they're right-sizing themselves, because looking forward, if you don't have a game coming out right now, or you have a game coming out soon, once that thing goes out, do you need your head count? Do you have projects lined up that require the head count that you have, require the business space that you have, require the expenditures that you have? And if you don't, and you have a board that you have to answer to, you've got to come up with that answer.
All right, let not to cut you off, but let's go on to the next story, which is also about layoffs. This is coming from IGN, written by Rebecca Valentine. Telltale Games has allegedly laid off most of its workers. Narrative adventure Telltale Games, the studio currently working on The Wolf Among Us 2, which just released the Expanse, the Telltale series, has undergone layoffs, which one former player says impacted, quote, most of, end quote, the studio. The news first circulated on a post on X, formerly Twitter. Are we calling it X or are we calling it Twitter? I don't know at this point.
I call it Twitter.
I call it Twitter.
I'm not on there anymore, so it doesn't matter to me. But I just refer to it as Twitter because everyone knows it as Twitter.
I'm just gonna say Twitter from now on. Bro, I know you said you were getting off X, Twitter.
I refuse to call it that. It's Twitter.
Getting off of Twitter and not arguing with a bunch of random people is one of the best decisions I've ever been in my life. It is feels so great to not be on Twitter. I love it.
The only
so if anyone's thinking about it, just pull the trigger. Unless there's some friends you talk to that you only have on that platform, I get it. But if you got multiple ways to talk to people, just get off of Twitter. It's a cesspool.
All right. Post formerly on Twitter by former Telltale cinematic artist Jonah Huang, which I probably just pronounced wrong. JT calls it the next porn site. Twitter. Next porn site. Because apparently they allow nudity on their site now. Said the layoffs took place in early September. His tweet, quote, "This is a sore subject, but I feel it necessary to add to the game and layoff news. Telltale laid off most of us early September. Status of The Wolf Among Us 2, I can't say because he's under an NDA. Now I focus on what matters to me, my own game, and the following words. Games industry, we must unionize." End quote. Telltale confirmed that it had undergone layoffs in a statement sent to IGN, but did not confirm the number or extent. Its statement reads as follows, quote, "Due to the current marketing conditions, we regrettably had to let some of our Telltale team go recently. We did not take this action lightly, and our commitment to storytelling and finding new ways to do so remains the same. We are grateful to everyone for their dedication along the journey, and we are working to support everyone impacted. All projects currently in development are still in production, and we have no further updates at this time." End quote. Telltale, like, they've already shut down, reformed. I think
the big problem for Telltale is that most of their games rely on licensing, so you can definitely get yourself in trouble really quick, dig yourself in a hole when it comes to that. And if your game sales don't, meet expectations, so
isn't Telltale also making a Star Wars game, or did I just lump them in with the whole story?
No, you just lumped them in.
Okay.
I want to say you're thinking of Eclipse, but I could be wrong.
Well, no, I know of Eclipse, but I thought Telltale was making also a Star Wars game. But I could just at the time we were constantly saying Star Wars by this person, Star Wars by this person.
Disney is putting like Star Wars here, there, and everywhere. It's like people make fun of Skyrim for being on everything, but my God, Disney could not be trying to take more advantage of Star Wars if they tried. Like I'm sorry, I'm so sick of Star Wars. I just don't care anymore.
Sabers entered the chat. He says that's Quantic Dream. I know the Quantic Dream is making a game. I know that. I got confused. I thought Telltale was also making one. All right, let's get back to the point at hand. The Wolf Among Us 2. According to Telltale, all games are still in production, but they have laid off people. We got one person saying that they laid off most of the staff. Telltale doesn't quote or won't comment on that. This sucks. I mean,
I have no reason to not believe that developer, the former team member who says they laid off most of us, like, what reason they had to lie? I mean, if you're Telltale, you don't want to get out to how many people you laid off because you don't want to worry people at current projects you're working on. So they have every reason not to tell the truth, or at least not talk about it. But as far as like if you're on the team, and obviously this person, they were talking about it. They said, this happened early September. We're now talking about this, early October. That's a month ago. So if this person really was, had an axe to grind or anything, you figured this would have come out by now.
One other thing, apparently the CEO said that the reason Wolf Among Us was delayed was because they were struggling to port it from Unreal 4 to Unreal 5, and they also had a desire to avoid crunch, and it does not have a new release date.
Why not just keep it on Unreal 4? Why do Unreal 5? If you start on Unreal 4, just stay on Unreal 4. I don't know.
I don't know. Comment from the chat. Dex says, might be a silly question, but are these layoffs part of people spending less due to inflation? He says he may be way off the mark.
I'm sure a little, but I don't think it would affect so soon.
Again, Telltale already had to kind of shut down because of their strategy, and they really haven't changed. They're still making the same style of games and still licensing games, and The Wolf Among Us is, a sequel. So it seems like they've just been operating business as usual in the style of games they're making, and you know,
Well,
that
to be
that
fair,
formula proved unsuccessful before.
well, to be fair, Alex, Telltale is under new management. It's different leaders at the top, and it may be that some of the licensed properties that they're doing now, they were still under contract from before, so they may need to get from underneath those contracts before they can start doing unlicensed properties. I'm speculating. I have no proof of that. That's just my initial thought. Ro, obviously more layoffs. I don't know if you're a Telltale fan.
I am. I love The Wolf Among Us, and I was very, very excited for Wolf 2. This one definitely hurts for sure, because it's a lot of good people. I think where I have like so many flags and questions in my head are, the fact that they're not being specific from the Telltale perspective of just how many people they laid off is a big flag, because depending upon how much of your total workforce that you're laying off, you actually have to declare that. You have to, from a government standpoint, have to declare that and put that out. So if they're just skirting under that and not having to disclose the number, then I think that threshold is like, if it's more than like 5%, you have to disclose it. So if they're not restructuring, so not declaring bankruptcy and restructuring again, then the number of people that they're laying off, if they're not having to disclose it and put out all the press that everybody hates putting off, then it can't be a super high percentage of the business. But I don't know how many people are left at Telltale after the restructure, after all of these things. If I think about the projects that they have, and as it's already been mentioned, so much of their stuff is licensing. Licensing sucks because regardless of how much you sell or how, good a thing performs or not, there is still a contractual writer that you have to turn dollars over for. And sometimes there are even writers in those contracts that are like, oh, and by the way, if you don't meet at least this in sales, then we also get this, because now it's damaged our brand to be associated with your lackluster sale thing, right? So we don't know, like, really what is going on at Telltale. But I don't know that they survive and what form they survive. Like, if you're this quiet about a layoff at your company, if the only thing that you're saying is that our things that were in production are still in production, and that's it, that's a big flag on the play for me.
And the only thing we know that's in production right now with them is The Wolf Among Us.
Right.
We don't know anything else they're making.
And so you can't hang your hat on The Wolf Among Us. Like, I love Wolf Among Us, but it was absolutely a niche game. Okay, it was not a blockbuster, like, raining money down on Telltale performer of a game. And so what else do you have in the hopper? And if those are things that are licensed, if you don't have the people on board to actually get them across the line, they're not coming across the line. So my concern, and I hope that it's not right, but my concern is that, like, yeah, everything is in production right now, but in a month from now, we're going to be hearing that they're not.
All right. Yield, your thoughts, sir?
I go back to what I said before. The warning signs are out there.
All right. I'm seeing an article here, and I can update this probably next week, but apparently Telltale just bought a developer called Flavorworks, which made the game Erica, and they bought them, and then these layoffs happened shortly after. I'll do some research on that.
That was a great move.
But I'll do some research on that to find out, because if they bought a studio and then laid off a bunch of people, that's kind of shady. All right, we got one more layoffs to talk about. Naughty Dog apparently laid off some people. This is coming from IGN, written by Wesley Yinpu. Naughty Dog has reportedly suffered a round of layoffs, with the troubled Last of Us multiplayer spinoff said to be, quote, on ice. The Sony-owned studio, which is home to 400 staff... Stop clapping, Yield. The Sony-owned studio, which is home to 400 staff, laid off at least 25 developers, Kotaku said. Most of the people affected were quality assurance contractors who were seeing their contracts cut short. According to Kotaku, the full-time staff are not affected. Naughty Dog will reportedly not offer severance to laid off staff, who Kotaku said are expected to work until the end of October. According to the site, Naughty Dog staff, quote, are being pressured to keep the news quiet, end quote. And Sony has reached out for comment, and they haven't got. IG had reached out for comment from Sony, and they haven't gotten it. The Last of Us multiplayer spinoff is, according to Kotaku, is basically on ice, although it's not completely canceled. This tallies with a May report from Bloomberg, which said the quality and long-term viability of the much-anticipated Last of Us multiplayer game has come into question as a result of a small group remains on the project while the company reevaluates the direction. We know many of you have been looking forward to hearing more about our Last of Us multiplayer game. We're incredibly proud of the job our studio has done thus far, and the development has continued. We realized what is best for the game is to give it more time. This was all a quote from back in a couple months ago. Our team will continue to work on the project as well as other games in development, including a brand new single-player experience. We look forward to sharing more soon. And they just thank us for our support. Yield, I jokingly said stop clapping, but are you really happy that this multiplayer is going away or possibly going away?
Yes. I thought it was an absolutely waste of Naughty Dog's time and talent.
Yeah, but Yield, I'm going to call you out here.
That's fine.
I'm not big on the multiplayer, and I wasn't going to play this much like you, but this is likely led to layoffs, and all they got to do is get the game out. You don't have to play it, and people can still keep their jobs. So I think you're looking at it from the wrong angle.
Well, I'm not happy that they lost their jobs. Absolutely not. But
and in the end, if Sony makes more money on this multiplayer and can put it back into making PlayStation games, now maybe they just put it back into another multiplayer game, but you don't play it. That's one thing. But I think that the success of this game is directly tied to these layoffs.
All right, Ro, I want to ask you a question, and you may or may not be able to answer this, so please just...
I will tell you if I can or I can't.
A QA contractor, they are basically the people that play the game and report back to the developers about bugs and stuff like that, right?
Yeah, so that's what QA is, quality assurance, right? So they're playing builds regularly to see if they're bugs, if they're able to, repeat or not, and lighting those up. The key thing here is like contract versus FTE, right? Because contract work, depending upon in the gaming industry, like who you work on, contracts are very different. Because most of those positions, right, you're going through an agency and it's very clear, like how long you're contracted for, that at any time your contract, for any reason can end. There's not a lot of certainty there. Contract work is just hard, especially in the video game industry, but in the tech industry in general, right? Because you can have funding today and you can have a job today, and then tomorrow, guess what? We're putting our focus otherwhere, and so your contract is now ended as of today. Take your stuff and go. It super sucks. It is not an easy life to live as a contractor in tech spaces and game spaces or in industry. But QA is one of those places where just across the board, tech and games, where those are not long-term contracts. And very often they're not renewed. More times than not, you will bring in different folks. There are maybe, I think across the game industry, there's like 30 QA folks that are like known to be great. And those people consistently get contracts around, but not with the same company or in the same space. So like contract layoffs versus full-time employee layoffs, those are different, right? Like very few contracting companies have severance built in, like contract ends. Again, I don't like it because it is basically disposable workforce wherever you are. Tech industry, entertainment industry, which, games is a part of. And those are folks that like you're not having to cover benefits for. You're not having to cover, health insurance. More times than not, you're not having to cover like travel and things like that for contractors. So they are a much more affordable workforce and they are disposable, and it sucks. And way too much of the tech industry and the entertainment industry rely much too heavily on contract work versus full-time hire, just because they're easier on the books.
I don't think it's wrong to say, but basic QA guys, they're basically independent contractors that don't have any loyalty to a certain studio. They can jump from studio to studio as needed.
Well, it depends, right? Because there are some companies that you absolutely do have in-house full-time QA, and then you have your external guys, right? So like, depending upon how big your game is, if it's multi-platform and things like that, you may have your in-house that knows one platform, and then you contract out QA folks to other ones. And it's not about necessarily QA folks wanting to have loyalty or not. It's that the industry is really built in a way that doesn't allow that to happen, right? Like some companies you can contract for, and you can only contract to them for like 12 months, so 1 year, and then you have to be off their books entirely for like 6 months, and then you can come back. Like when I contracted to the government, I could only be contracted to the DOT under the agency I was working for 12 months. And then I had to be off that agency's books for 12 months. So my project was 12 months. If it needed to be extended, I had to actually leave the agency I was at, not work for 30 days, and then come back and reapply for the job and hopefully get rehired coming from a different agency. And so it's things like that that are built in that make it difficult to build in loyalty. Because if I take a contract and I know I'm only on for 12 months, I know it takes me 2 to 3 months to get a job. My first 3 months in, after I'm like learning all the systems and stuff like that, I'm already dusting off the resume to start looking for the next gig. So it's the way that it is already architected and set up that is built to be counter to that. Like unless you build in, which means you have to pay for the headcount, in-house QA, you're constantly circulating QA folks because you're contracting them.
Right.
And depending upon how your org is set up to allow contracts, if you can't renew somebody multiple times over and over and over and over again, you got a problem. And oh, by the way, all that knowledge and all that training and all that time that you put into that person to learn your systems, to learn how to report, they take that with them when they walk out the door,
Yeah, it's now
and then
gone.
go someplace else.
Yeah, it's now gone. So.
And you got to start over from scratch again.
All right. Let's get off the sad news and let's jump on.
Hold on. I do want to
sorry.
say something
Go ahead.
about this whole Naughty Dog mess. I find it real odd that we get a whole lot of negative news coming out of Sony right after Jim Ryan's announced retirement.
I was gonna say something. I was gonna say something about that too. Has anybody not put 2 and 2 together yet?
I think it was a forced retirement personally, but that's just me.
Well, we're on the same page then, because Eurogamer, Sony's live service pivot may not pay off the way Jim Ryan had hoped. That's one of their articles. PlayStation Lifestyle, PlayStation Studios reportedly struggling with live services. Like Tricky said, I put it out there on the Trophy Wars thing. I think they told him he had to, and they're showing him respect by letting him do it, and giving him over the holidays. But I think that especially with layoffs at Naughty Dog, when the last time that happened, and this Naughty Dog project, which they probably poured millions and millions of dollars to, now we don't know if it's going to come out. It's on ice, which I assume is just mean it's currently on hold while they have a few people working on it.
I heard some speculation. Not to cut you off there, but I heard some speculation because there's a rumor that they're making a Last of Us 2 PlayStation 5 edition.
Yeah, I saw that too.
And
yeah, I saw that. I rolled my eyes.
The rumor is I'm hearing is that when they launch that, the multiplayer is going to be attached to it.
Well, yeah. What I had seen is they want to keep the Naughty Dog layoffs hush hush. Well, too late for that. But yeah, I definitely don't think Jim Ryan. I think it's plausible that he doesn't want to travel as much, but I also think it's a convenient excuse. I think they told him he had to step down or retire. That's my opinion, and it seans like Tricky and I are on the same page.
I don't disagree.
Me and Yield had this conversation as well. I think it was like before we recorded our Patreon episode on The Mandalorian. By the way, go to patreon.com/provengamer. To check out all the content we do there. But me and Yield had a conversation where this kind of feels like he was forced to get out. Like they were just tired of the bullshit. It's like, listen, you got to go.
Yeah, they dumped all their money into this multiplayer thing. And it's now coming to light after his retirement that it doesn't seem to be panning out. Everybody's laying off. Naughty Dogs is supposedly on hold, and that was the big one they've been pimping out.
Well, and let's not forget that they completely closed Pixel Opus earlier this year, which I don't know how you don't have anything to do for an entire studio, especially one as talented as Pixel Opus. But they not only are there Naughty Dog layoffs at Naughty Dog, but they closed Pixel Opus.
Well, I mean, not the
price hike the PSN. Yeah, all signs point to a forced retirement or a forced outage, and it almost kind of feels damage control time.
Caneless in the chat. I don't know where he's coming from with this, but he says Nintendo will buy Microsoft. Laughing his ass off.
That would be funny.
I would like to work for Nintendo.
I just find it funny because we just had the recent story that Microsoft tried to buy Nintendo, or Phil Spencer wanted to buy Nintendo.
I'm sure that's what Caneless is referring to in one way or another.
Yeah. Ro, you got a good kick out of that.
I enjoy a good laugh.
All right, so let's go from the bad news and potentially happy news for Alex. This is coming from IGN, written by Ryan Dinsdale. CD Projekt Red CEO Adam Kenichi is entering a supervisory position in 2025. The CEO is...
How does this connect to me?
Hold on. Let me finish.
I never played no CD Projekt Red game.
Let me get... This is why you need to read the agenda beforehand, because you'll see where I'm going with this.
No, like most of the internet, I prefer to react very quickly.
The CEO has announced that he will be moving to a supervisory position at the company in 2025 and therefore be stepping down as CEO as part of a larger management shakeup. Here's your keywords, Alex. Management shakeup.
Oh, okay. So, after what happened with the disastrous launch of Cyberpunk.
Kenichi, who has been at CD Projekt Red for 30 years.
Finally, like a couple years later, we're doing the managerial shakeup that we should have done right after.
He's been at 30 years as of 2024, will resign as a member of the management board at the end of the year. Before he does so, he will transition to his current role as CEO to the role of Chief Strategy Officer as of January 1st, 2024. Current Chief Creative Officer Adam Badowitsky and current Chief Commercial Officer Michael Nowoliski, I hate names that I can't pronounce, will take over as joint CEOs of CD Projekt Red as of January 1st, 2024. The supervisory board, Kenichi, is joining oversees the activities of CD Projekt Red and performs its duties by issuing recommendations and adopting resolutions. CD Projekt co-founder and former joint CEO Marcin, I'm not even going to try to pronounce the last name, made the same move in October 2022, joining the supervisory board and therefore leaving behind his management board duties. So, Alex, now that you heard this, this is just the management shakeup that you said should have been done a long time ago, as Yield also pointed out.
Yeah, but we also don't know if this was because of Cyberpunk. I mean, in the end, Cyberpunk was very successful. So, but we don't know if it's in regards to that specifically, if it's just kind of like a, hey, you fucked up, see on the other side, or if it's, just like this person's opting to take this role. I don't know. I think that there's no way of actually knowing if this was in any way tied to that.
It's got to be linked, right? You gotta imagine, like, the heads had to have rolled after Cyberpunk's launch.
Again, Cyberpunk in the end was very successful for them, regardless of that snafu with the release of the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One versions of the game. I mean, in the end, this game has still made them a lot of money. So,
I think I saw an article where it says it's officially outsold The Witcher 3.
So. And the DLC's gotten very good review scores. So, I don't know. I mean, people may not forget it, but I think they will certainly forgive it. And yeah, I mean, look, new management, like, let's see what this new management team can do. Let's hope that they learn their lessons from Cyberpunk and can move forward and not pull anything like that again. But yeah, I mean, honestly, like, if you were hoping for any kind of, like, for the company to be punished for what happened, it certainly wasn't that. That never happened. So, but like I said, move forward, take the lesson you learned, and don't pull that shit again. That's all You can hope.
All right, Yield.
What?
Your
I
thoughts?
said what I wanted. No,
Okay.
I said what I wanted to say.
All right, Ro, I'm sending you a message in Skype right now.
Okay.
Hold on, I haven't finished typing it yet.
Okay.
Just give me a simple yes or no, and then if you say no, then I'll move on. If you say yes, then I'll ask you the question.
Okay, so here's what yeah, I can to a degree.
Okay, so, Ro, we were okay. Just disclaimer here. Ro does work for Microsoft, and
I work in marketing, not in development.
Yes. So, she's going to be very careful, as she always is, in what she says. But, Ro, we were talking...
Opinions are my own.
Yes. We were talking prior to the show about, well, Cyberpunk came up, but developing for different consoles and
platforms, period.
Yeah, and how troubling that could be. I'm just asking you to speak to what you can, obviously, and then we'll go from there.
Absolutely. So, when you're a consumer, multi-platform seems to make the most sense, right? Because, hey, if I put this out where everybody can access this and play the way that they want to, I'm more likely to get more people to play my thing, to buy my thing. And if I have DLC involved with it or those kinds of things, I have more opportunities to make money. The problem is that code bases across all of these platforms are very, very different. And to put on a single team that is developing and building these games, the need to deliver quality and parity across all of the places where people could game is very difficult. And I would argue damn near impossible to pull off, right? Because think of all the places where you can play games. I can play games on all of my iOS devices. I can play games on my Android devices. I can play games on, let's say, which is killer. You still have them. They still work. I can play games on a PS3, on a PS4, on a PS4 Pro, on a PS5. I can play games on an Xbox 360 still. I can play games on an Xbox One, an Xbox One S, and X. I can play them on Series, right? Right there, just in the names that I've put down, there's at least 12 different boxes that are there. Then you could throw in Mac OS. You could throw in PC, and oh man, I've now got to make a game that can run on PC, but I don't know what graphics card you have. So I've got to try to make parity between all of these graphics cards that are out there. It is insanity. Debugging that, doing customer service for that, managing that, the monster that becomes is very, very difficult. And that's a lot to put on a dev team, period, end. And so, to expect something to come out multi-platform and be a great experience across all those different code bases, and that doesn't even throw in this one I got to do in Unreal 4, but this one I got to do in Unreal 5, and guess what? There's no parity between the two of them. You would think it was just old engine with new stuff. No, completely different engine, completely different tools, completely different dev cycles and how things react. So everything you've built before, the library that you have before, isn't transferable. It's difficult. It's really, really difficult. And so, I always feel for a dev house. I did before I worked in gaming because I love gaming, and I had a lot of friends that were in dev, that were doing small games and things like that. And to hear some of the stories that they would share of just how difficult it was of trying to get their games to be out on multiple platforms and be as good as each other, right? Because that's their goal, is to make sure that wherever you play the game, that you have a great experience. Delivering that is very difficult. So, I love Cyberpunk 2077 when it came out. I played it all the way, almost to the end, and then I stopped because I wanted to wait for their first major patch to come out before I ran Endgame. And I did play it on, oh, so sorry, guys. I played it on my Xbox Series S. I never had any game-breaking bugs. I had a lot of fun. I had a lot of weird things that pop up that I was like, oh, yeah, anytime I take a car out into the desert over 55 miles an hour, my character's going to T-pose on the top of it. And that stuff was fun. I have a lot of photos that I took in-game of me just T-posing, driving out in the desert. That was funny to me, right? But I didn't play it on a lower system because I knew that the devs that were working on it, their vision was always for it to be, at the time, next-gen system ready. And then trying to dumb that back for previous systems that don't have as strong architecture, I knew it wasn't going to be a great experience. And I think that that's sometimes like the filter as a consumer that I forget to put on is like, you can't be great everywhere. You just can't. Everything's too different. People do proprietary things. Like, you can't. But can you focus on making a great experience where you want it to be and then build off it? You know, beautiful place that we're in right now is that you can patch it. Cyberpunk 2077, multi-platform, had a really rough start. But it's a really good game now. Like, I haven't started the new stuff, but I'm looking forward to it because Idris Elba makes everything better.
That's why the original Pacific Rim was better than the second one. Well, one of the many reasons.
He is a
you know what I mean?
He is a sexy man. I'm not afraid to say that.
Okay, all right. Like, just talk in my ear and let me run a mission, please.
Yeah, I mean, not only is he good looking, but that voice.
Just right? But also, like, I know the quality of acting that he delivers and how much he respects video games. So I know that his performance is going to be good and I'm going to enjoy it. I enjoyed the story of Cyberpunk. I thought it had a great story. Yeah, it had some functional stuff that kind of sucked. Did it break the game in its entirety? No, but it definitely did break it in some places. But here we are now at a place where it is not just playable, it's really good. Same thing happened with No Man's Sky, right? Overpromise, underdeliver, but now it's in a great place and it is an absolutely fun game to play. And I think that's one of the things that I try to remember as I look at the industry right now. Because we have the ability to patch, the game can continue to be devved on. It can be continued to be evolved because we have digital delivery now. You know, it's not like, hey, what's on the cartridge or what's on the disc? Like, that's it. And if you didn't like it, well, sucks to be you. We already got your money, right? Like, that's not the world that we live in today.
But I'm sorry to cut you off there, but shouldn't we as gamers have the expectation that when a game is launched, it's not broken? I mean, are we just...
I think there's the difference between, Tricky, to be honest, I think there's a difference between broken and needs improvement. I think that it's absolutely the consumer's right to expect quality, right? I'm putting down money any way you slice it, whether I'm getting the game through a subscription service, I'm paying for the game completely outright, I get it as a bonus for another service I have. There's a certain level of quality that I should expect. But I do think that it is unfair if I'm thinking of a game that is multi-platform, that is today, right, supporting, like, we all see the end cards, right, on games where, like, you see all the logos for all the places you can play a game, right?
Right.
To expect that something is going to be 100% perfect on every single one of those logos at launch, I think is unrealistic. Just because of the expectations we're now putting on games, right? Like, a good game to me, imperfect is not broken to me, personally, right? Broken is, I go to start it up and the damn thing quits. I can't play it. I can't run a mission. Like, a character doesn't move where they're supposed to. That's broken, okay? Something being slow, something being laggy, something not having a texture generating here or there where it's supposed to, that's imperfect, not broken. And I think we have to be real prescriptive with the language that we use. Personally.
I get what you're saying, and I'm grabbing what you're putting down, but I just think we should have some sort of baseline to say, okay, listen, because people will say, okay, I'm being told to shush by V in the chat, and then after I say what I'm going to say, I'm going to go to a really good question by Caneless in the chat. I think we're not wrong for having an expectation that a game should be working when it comes out. I mean, you brought up Cyberpunk, you brought up No Man's Sky. Both of those can be argued to say they should have been delayed at release and not put out the way they were. I can see arguments going both ways. But, as I talked about earlier, one of the things I'm doing in the division right now is running the Incursion. And the first couple times I ran the Incursion, I was dealing with stuttering issues. Like, you can go back, I was streaming it on Twitch. You can go back and watch the video where I was running. The game was running smooth, but the picture on my screen kept freezing up. Everybody else that I was running with didn't see me staggering. That was only on my end. And again, you could argue and say, okay, well, that was because everybody and their mothers was trying to run that mission, and the servers were probably bogging down. Is that a real problem with the game, or is that just, because there's, I don't know, let's say 2 million people trying to run it, where if I wait until tomorrow, only 1 million people are going to be trying to run it, so I'm not going to have these issues. But I think there's a realistic expectation that when a game launches, it should work. Textures, pixels dropping, and stuff like that, that's not what I'm talking about.
But it's what most people harangue.
Right. And
games that are broken come out. And that's why I say, like, we have to be prescriptive, right? Because quality to you and quality to me are two different things. So where do you draw the line? Because when you talk about moving a launch date for a game, right? So let's just say, like, in general, not talking from any experience specifically that I have.
Mm-hmm.
But let's say that you've called a launch date for a game, right? When you call a launch date for a game, there's a whole mechanism that goes into place of people doing work to determine what sales are going to look like. They're going to start working up, like, how many people will play the game, how many units they're going to ship. At this point, they're now starting to plan, okay, what does marketing look like? What does post-launch marketing look like? And then what's the plan for after launch, how we're going to move this game? And then we have to move on to, like, the next things, right? That whole thing spins up. Folks that are deving the game, so that's everybody from programmers, engineers, design, everybody, now have this window that they're launching at. At the same time, you also have a business mechanism that goes, okay, great. Once we get to launch, there's a certain amount of business, and I hate the math, I hate it, but there's a certain amount of math that says, hey, this is the window where we can look at, like, where we're going to have the biggest impact for actually driving revenue of this game. And then depending upon whether it has DLC, in-game purchase, all those kinds of things, like what monetization looks like, which means at this point, resources that we have here, we're going to shift to other places. That's how the plan goes. So you can't just shift the launch date like, oh, hey, this needs more time, so we got to give it like 3 more months or 6 more months, because the impact that has, business-wise, you may not be able to support. So sometimes it's decided, are we at quality enough to hit the launch date and then know and already be working on day one patches? I mean, is there anyone who is not used to a day one patch or expects a day one patch?
I think every game under the sun has a day one patch nowadays.
Okay. So I think as consumers, there absolutely needs to be hey, there's a specific quality that I expect, like a baseline of quality that I expect for a game when it actually is launching to come out with. But what the criteria is for what that quality is, I think it's going to be really hard to nail down, because, again, people have opinions, and we all as consumers can't agree what that quality is at launch. We can't, because I look, not at Twitter, but like I look at Metacritic, I look at all of the game pubs, and there's no two reviewers, editors, Metacritic scores that rate quality the same way. So it's a moving target that no developer is ever going to be able to hit. Quality for me is not frame rate. I don't give two flippin' dippity doos about frame rate. What I care about, what's quality for me in a game is the gameplay for me enjoyable? Are the characters in this game relatable? Do I give a damn about them? Is the story good enough to make me want to drop time in this game, to make me want to buy more content if they have it available, if they have, the ability to have skins and whatnot? Is there a community robust around it that is like driving like great things happening there? That's, for me, my baseline of quality. Do I enjoy playing the damn game? I don't care about frame rate. I don't care about textures. I honestly, don't really care about the look of a game. Like, I have a really nice TV. It has a game mode on it. I don't know what that does. I don't know how that looks.
I don't think anybody knows what game mode does.
In front of me right now, that is like a third of the size. Those are not the things that I set quality on. But if I go to Metacritic or I go to Kotaku or Polygon, like, games get ripped apart for being broken because textures don't load, a character clips through a wall. Like, and to me, that's not a broken game. A broken game is I can't play your game. So I think we have to, and we should, and I don't know who drives it, but I do think that there needs to be a baseline of like, this is what quality is, because we know day one patch is going to come. Those things are being worked on months before a game comes out so that you can have it ready to go and through certification and out the door on day one. And there's already a plan ready for like the next 2 or 3 patches based off of how people receive it. So I think that we as consumers, and I don't know if it's just because I have a soft spot for devs, because I do, but I think we as consumers need to do a little bit of growing up and understanding that there's a shit ton of people working really, really hard to get a game over its launch date and out the door, and they're working even harder to increase the quality of that game and make it more over time. And I think that we just have to grow with that, because the tech stack is just too ridiculous now.
All right.
To get it right out the door.
All right. So I wanted to throw it to Alex and Yield here, because we've been talking, me and you've been talking for a while now. But there's a question in the chat that I want to ask you before we move on to Alex and Yield and their opinions. Matt, who is a host of the show, unfortunately could not make the show today. He says, but doesn't a minimum frame rate have a quality basis? Certainly playing a game sub 20 frames per second is extremely difficult compared to one that's consistently above 50.
Depends on the game, right? Like, if I'm playing a game that is, a pixel-based game that, is trying to be retro, sub 30 frames shouldn't affect that in the least little bit. Again, the scale becomes respectfully qualitative, right? Like, I don't care. I really don't care about a game being 30 frame a second or 60 frame a second, because for me, it doesn't impact the game. For me.
Right.
So that's not on my quality bar. Okay, I have played plenty of shooters that are 30 frame a second on my PC, on older consoles, and I didn't feel it. I didn't give it about it. It didn't impact the game for me. So this wasn't quality for me. I think for some people it absolutely is, and I'm not taking that away from any of them. Okay, I have seen a whole lot of people say, hey, an FPS is ass if it's not running at 60 frames a second. Growing up, the first-person shooters that I played never ran at that. So my bar for quality is different. If you're only playing on newer consoles, or frankly, where I feel like you kind of should be playing FPSs, which is on a dope PC, you have the ability to run it at stupid frame rates that do impact quality for you. Great. But I don't think that should be a beholden, like we go out to every dev and go, hey, if you can't get your game to 60 frames a second on every platform that you plan to release the game, then it's not at quality and don't come out until you can. That's a really, really, really bad precedent to put out there, because you're going to curb a lot of creativity.
All right. V in
my opinion.
V in the chat says PC Master Race. So, Alex and Yield, obviously me and Ro been talking for a while.
Sorry.
I want to give you guys a chance.
I'm passionate about this one.
I want to give you guys a chance to respond to anything or say anything you want to say. Yield, we'll start with you, sir.
I got nothing.
Okay. Alex?
I think realistically, it's up to the people need to manage their expectations, but also game companies need to make sure that they're putting their developers and their games in the best possible spot. Like, everyone's been talking about how Mortal Kombat looks on the Switch. And you always have to ask yourself, look, can we put this out on this console? Maybe, but should we? And, giving people more opportunities to play a game. I understand that mentality, but sometimes games just shouldn't be put out, technology-wise on certain, platforms. And I think that's up to the people making the game to make that call. So yeah, people everywhere need to manage their expectations, but also we need to make sure that the games aren't being put onto systems where they're going to be a sloppy technical mess.
All right, and going back to Caneless's question real quick before we move on to our next topic. He goes, should we be allowed to review a game at all now that we can change for the better? I think what his question is, should we be reviewing games at launch, or should we be reviewing the games after a month or two, after patches and everything has come out, should we be reviewing them then? Kalis, if I'm asking your question wrong, please correct me in the chat, but I think that's basically what you were going for. Yield, I'll go with you first. Should we be reviewing games at launch, or should we wait a month or two until patches come out and fix all the day one problems?
You should probably do both. You should have a review at launch.
So,
but then if let's say like with let's say with Cyberpunk, or even No Man's Sky, and it stumbles out the gate, but there are multiple patches to it, then there is no harm in going back and updating it or doing it again.
All right, Alex.
But that's not going to happen. But that's just my opinion.
Alex,
you gotta review them when they come out. Yes, make it available, make it known that hey, whenever there's any kind of patches, anything like that, if you're like a big purveyor of news, like talk about that, to help disseminate that news. But you can't just wait months and months and months until maybe the game is more playable. Like, should they review No Man's Sky 3-4 years later? No, you got to review when it comes out.
All right, and Ro, I'm going to ask you the same question, but I'm going to add a qualifier onto it. Being that you work on, the gaming industry side, when a review does come out, and let's just hypothetically say your game doesn't review very well, do you take that personally, or do you understand that this is somebody's own unique view and that's what it is?
So I'm going to answer this question completely from my own personal opinion and experience. I'm a human being. There's absolutely no way that you don't take it personally. You just don't. There's just no way. Like, because all the work that's gone into delivering the game, right? And how hard and how much time dev team has put in, QA team has put in, release team has put in, marketing has put in, sales has put in, partnerships has put in. Like, to build a marketing campaign for a game is, and then I'm only responsible, like, in my role for marketing in the game. More times than not, I don't get to play the games that I'm marketing before they come out. And so when a game doesn't land, it hurts. It hurts the devs more than anything else, especially when you see the reviews come in. The difficulty for me, and where, like, I absolutely take it personal, is when a game is really good, and this is before I even worked at Microsoft, but when a game is really good, you'll see, like, initially, first couple of weeks, the whole breadth of, like, games media talk about it and talk about the good things that they like about it, and then they never talk about it again unless it's, like, up on a sale and they're doing their holiday sale pieces or whatever. When a game doesn't land, to me, the worst side of, like, humanity comes out, because it's so much more volume of kicking something that isn't successful than celebrating something that is. And so it's really hard to not take that personally, right? Like, I'm not going to name the game, but I worked on a game. It didn't do really well. Like, it didn't do really well. And I was depressed for almost a month, because I saw every game review. I saw every YouTube video that came out, and it was really hard. It was really, really hard. It was sad. It hurt. I was in a dark, bad place for a very, very, very long time. And I, in my work, had never been so deflated. And I didn't program the game. I wasn't a dev. So, like, imagining what the dev house was going through was painful. And so for me, like, I look at this industry, and I even think of when we were reviewing games and things like that, we were atrocious at, okay, here's my lineup. This game's coming out, so I got to get this review out. So this review goes out the door. Okay, great. And then there's this one. It's just patch notes. So literally, it's a copy paste. Be like, oh, it's patch notes. Look, they did it. They did an update. You should check it out. Here's everything that's in the update. Okay, great. And not really paying attention to any of those things. I think because we are in a place now with games that whether it's a live service game or not, games are a service, right? There's constant DLC planned for most games, expansions planned for most games, in-game purchases planned for most games. The game doesn't stop at launch. And I think that it's not smart as an industry for us when we're reviewing the games and thinking about it to stop at launch. I think you absolutely need to review a game at launch because I need to know generally what am I getting into as far as today. The difficulty comes in with that is more times than not, like, and you guys know this because you get review codes, right? You get to review a game sometimes a couple of days before it hits launch, sometimes a week before it hits launch. And the game build that you're playing in that review period may not necessarily be the game build that comes out with the day one patch because you might not be playing the version that has the day one patch. There may be a day 15 patch. There may be a day 30 patch, right? There may be a 7-month down the road patch, right? To expect reviewers to wait for every single patch and to replay the game and re-review it, I think doesn't make sense. But I do think from a point of, if you're playing and reviewing a game and your review that you know today is going to drop and that thing is not great, I do think that there should be, and this is on the reviewer, the onus is on them, which is why we don't see it, that if you slam the shit out of a game because it is not perfect when it comes out the gate, and it is bad, it is not a great user experience. If there is a major patch that comes out or update that comes out that supposedly says that it's addressing those things, I do think that warrants a replay. So that the people 6 months from now who may be just getting that new console or that new PC that can play that game, that they have a full view of what they're picking up that day, right? Like if I think about the coverage that we've seen of the new Cyberpunk stuff, I've seen probably 4 or 5 articles that were like, you know what? This new content is so good, it actually makes it a deservable thing that you should replay this game from beginning to end to go all the way through it. Because that's how much of a market improvement to the game, gameplay, and the story this new content makes. That warmed my heart to see, because that doesn't typically happen.
No.
Usually the headline is, oh, this game that was ass before, it's a little less ass now. And that's just not fair.
I saw a headline that says Cyberpunk is worth playing now. Matt in the chat says, and I'm going to be very blunt, I don't know the difference between these two, but he says qualitative reviews prior and at launch, and quantitative should come after. So.
I don't disagree. So, like, one is like the soft stuff, right? So that's your qualitative because it's quality based, right?
Okay.
And then your quantitative is your numbers based stuff, right? So your stuff that you can have absolute hard data on. That's what you do after. And I don't disagree, right? Because we're all in our fields when we start something new because we're experiencing it new for the first time. I know I'm running my mouth a lot, but I have a lot of feelings on these two topics.
Okay.
But like,
I love you, Ro, but we got to move on.
Okay.
I literally just noticed, like, it's been such a good show. I didn't realize we were approaching 2 hours right now.
Oh, dip.
And-
Okie dokie.
and we still
I'll be
got-
quiet.
We still got a couple topics to talk about. No, say what you want. I'm just
Nope.
trying to move
That's
on.
it. I don't disagree.
We also have to remember that sometimes bonuses for game development studios, all based on how well a game does score wise, they get bonuses based on how good the reviews are. So if the reviews aren't done till later down the road, you're making people wait for those bonuses potentially. So
And people also get promotions off of game launches.
Sometimes.
All right, next article coming from Game Rant, written by, I'm not even trying to pronounce your name, Dominic Washingjack. This is going to be quick. I'm going to try to make this quick. PlayStation Portal handheld is already sold out in many places. I'm just reading the highlights from their article. The PlayStation Portal has already sold out in many places around the world, showing strong demand and potential for commercial success. The pre-order period for the handheld started in late September and quickly sold out, including in Japan and Amazon in the U.S. And the limited pre-order volume makes it difficult to gauge exact sales figures, but the potential customer pool is large, suggesting the handheld could hit 1 million sales soon after its release. All right, so Alex and Yield, I pretty much know your opinions on the Project Q. Ro, this is kind of targeted to you a little bit because you do cloud gaming. This is essentially what the PlayStation Portal is. Is there really a market for a device that's essentially a glorified remote play device for the PlayStation?
I think there is a market for it. I don't know how big the market is for it, but there absolutely is a market for it. There's a market for everything, right? And that's, the line coming from a marketer, right? There's a market for everything. How large is that market? How dense is that market? How much can you tap that market? I don't know. Personally, is it for me? No, I don't want just a remote play device. In every room that matters in my home, I have a TV and a system or two connected to it. So I don't need remote play, and I don't need something that's remote play only. What I need is for when I travel, the thing that will let me play my games while I travel.
Right.
That's what I need.
Fair enough. All right, we're moving on because there's really, unless Alex or Yield, you want to say something about the Project Q.
The big thing is that you talked about it sold out. One, we don't know how many units were shipped out to each store, so that could be an impressive thing. It could not be an impressive thing. In our pre-show chat, Ro mentioned how some companies can kind of basically intend to sell out to send less stock out to make sure they sell out to have a pretty headline that entices people to go out and buy it or to drum up interest or fan the flames essentially. But the real tell of how successful this thing is going to be Sony and how they release the sales numbers, because you haven't heard much about the PSVR 2 lately, and if that thing was doing really well, Sony would be crowing about it. So we'll be able to know how well it's doing based on if Sony announces exact numbers, because they're more than happy to tell you about the PlayStation 2 and how its lifetime sales. But when these companies don't actually talk about it, that's when you know they're not really happy with it.
And it's also worth noting that I just went to PlayStation Direct, and it's still under for pre-order and stock, so they might just be talking about retailers. Yield, I'm assuming you have nothing to say about this, right?
You would be correct.
How I know you so well, sir.
Well, actually, I did, but it's negative, and we're 2 hours in, and no, I have nothing to say.
Okay. At this time, I'm going to throw it across the pond to Sid. And he's got this week's Sophie's Trophy. All right, for the live stream, where I'm not actually going to play it. I'm going to patch it in later because we're running late. But, for audio listeners, you don't even know this was said. But, all right, thank you, Sid, for this week's Sophie's Trophies. Thank you. It's always good to hear from Sid. We do have some questions from the Facebook, as I should be prepared with this, and I was, but then I put my phone down because I was texting people, because people were yelling at me because I was going long, so now I got to bring it back up real quick. Give me like 2 seconds as I vamp. Okay, 2 questions. Thank you again, V, for posting in the Facebook group. First question from Rick. What single game or game series needs a Monopoly set, and what would be some of the spots on the board or community chess / chance card descriptions? Obviously, just going to take a little thought. So I'm going to say I'd like to see a Last of Us Monopoly set. I think that would be pretty interesting.
Could you have enough locations on there to fill out the map?
I'm sure you could. Obviously, for lack of a better term, the pandemic is worldwide.
I got some answers for you.
Okay, well, go to you to give Ro and Yield some time, because I can see Ro's deep in thought right now.
I think you could do a Horizon Forbidden West one. I mean, one of my ideas is instead of locations, you could have the machines be the spots you buy on the board. Although, again, that may not work because then you're trying to turn things into hotels and stuff like that. So it's got to be property. So on the, you could have little pieces you could have the different machines be the pieces, but maybe that wouldn't work out so well. What would be a better idea, though, would be Legends of Zelda Ocarina of Time. because you could do all the temples, you could do the different villages, Kakariko, you could do, the Goron City, the Zora's Domain, maybe be a little weird building hotels and houses there, but, if there are properties there, you can still do that. And then you could have all the, like, the little pieces like, Ganondorf, the owl, you could have Impa, you could have Zelda, you can have Link, maybe have some of the bosses besides Ganon. So yeah, Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time would be probably my top pick, although also in the vein of the thing I just talked about with Horizon, having a punch-out board with all the different boxers be the spaces. Again, we're dealing with properties, so they got to be locations, so that wouldn't work well. But it would be a cool idea if I could work it out. But yeah, Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time is my main answer.
Yield, do you need more time, or you got an answer?
No, I really don't have an answer. I'm not really good with these types of questions, and I really don't know. I really feel that the Monopoly thing has been done in too much.
Okay. Ro, do you have an answer?
No, I don't have a solid good one just because I'm trying to think of like what games haven't had, even if it wasn't like for purchase, a Monopoly game that was made or, mocked up, and there's really not a lot.
When in doubt, just say Bloodborne. You'll get all the PlayStation fanboys going. Just say Bloodborne.
I could give you an answer that proves I'm not
ready?
Sony Pony.
Just like it's not even about Sony Pony or not. Like
No, I said I could give you an answer that proves I'm not a Sony Pony.
Okay, go ahead.
Starfield. All the places could be the different planets.
So I mean, anything that has like a lot of worlds. But thank you for that. I appreciate that. Thank you so much for pandering to me. I do appreciate it. It is recognized and noted. Especially as how much you tell me you hate Microsoft often. I do appreciate that. But I'm just trying to.
But he likes them on Facebook.
We like all the things. I have all the systems. I play all the games that I want to. But I was just trying to think, like, for me, what would be like an enjoyable Monopoly experience? Because, like, I agree with you. Like, the Monopoly thing has been, like, overdone. Like, I can make a Monopoly board based off my family right now if I want to as a one-off, right? Like, just like custom Oreos. But I think, like, one that I would enjoy having outside of a Last of Us one, which I would, because that would just be great. And I could, put my Ellie statue right next to it and just place it perfectly.
Oh, a fellow Last of Us fan. I like this.
Yeah. I'm a Naughty Dog fan, big time. I would actually like love an Uncharted Monopoly game. I think that there's so many places that you could put on it, like, and it would lend itself well. And instead of like houses, it would be like treasures that you would be like putting onto places. I think that would be really cool and like a really cool set piece to have. So.
Oh, and hey, with the Punch Out, you could buy like world title belts, like boxing belts to put on all the boxers instead of houses. Led me down a good road there, Ro. Good job. Thank you.
All right. Next question come from Jeremy. Out of the great releases slated for October, which of them are you all buying? If you could only get one, which one are you choosing? So I Googled video game releases for this month, and I'm going to run through the list real quick so you guys are aware of what's coming out this month if you're not aware. Total Warfare, Disgaea 7, Warhammer 40,000 Darktide, Wargroove 2, Assassin's Creed Mirage, Detective Pikachu Returns, Roblox, Wildcard Football, Forza Motorsport, Honky, Star Rail, Lords of the Fallen, Sonic Superstars, Wizards with a Gun. Somebody's laughing.
You said Honky Star Rail. Honkai Star Rail.
There you go. Sonic Superstars, Wizard with a Gun, Endless Dungeon, Gargoyles Remastered, Spider-Man 2, Super Mario Bros. Wonder, Lord of the Rings Return to Mora, City Skylines 2, Just Dance 2024, Metal Gear Solid Master Collection Volume 1, Ghost Runner 2, Miniko's Night Market, Dave the Diver, which is coming. I think Jeff Hanna was talking about that game. Alan Wake 2.
He's been playing it.
Yeah, but he's playing on his mobile. Alan Wake 2 and UFC 5. Yield, I'll go to you first.
None of them.
Easy enough. Ro.
I've already bought Mirage. So I'll say Alan Wake 2, even though I won't play it because I'm a scaredy poof.
And it probably sucks.
Ouch.
I hated the first Alan Wake, but that's just personally me.
Yeah, but again, you're gonna play now one built specifically for the PlayStation 5 and modern consoles. It's not a remastered game, so you may like it a little better if the mechanics and everything, if the movement is better.
You said that, and I'll just wait for it to hit PlayStation Plus, and then maybe I'll try it.
My answer is Alan Wake 2, and I will say that I really hope they take the coffee thermoses collectibles out or at least less of them, because I don't need to be collecting 100 coffee thermoses. The story pages, the narrative pages, those make sense, but the coffee thermoses, man, having him drink that much coffee, he's gonna be jacked up and pissing for weeks.
And my answers are Assassin's Creed Mirage, which I already have, Roblox, because that's gonna make Sweet Mama D happy. I've already gotten the Spider-Man 2 Collector's Edition on its way. I've already purchased the Metal Gear Solid Collection, and that's it for me. I might get Super Mario Brothers Wonder, but I don't know, I'm kind of Mario Brothered out. So I might.
That's fair.
Might skip on that one for quite a while until.
When's the last Mario game you played?
I played Odyssey to completion, and then I bought 2 of them back to back. I bought Super Mario Brothers U and Bowser's Fury.
All right, so more than I thought you did.
Yeah. But those are my answers. All right. We're gonna go to our topic of the week. Trying to get done with the show because we are running along. For the record, as I stated at the beginning of the show, Ro is pretty much gonna be quiet during this one because she's.
I have no official opinion on the matter.
If Ro can chime in on something, she will, but she's not going to actually be talking about the topic directly. Coming from IGN, written by Alex Stedman. SAG-AFTRA members vote to authorize a video game strike. Members of the Video Game Actors Guild American Federation of Television and Radio Artists have voted to authorize a video game strike with a 98.32% of the votes in favor. Per their announcement, 34,687 members can cast ballots representing 27.47% of eligible voters. To be clear, this doesn't mean a video game performers are going on strike, but it does mean that the union negotiators have the go-ahead from their members to call one if they feel it necessary when their negotiations with video game companies, including Activision, Disney, EA, Take-Two, Insomniac, and WB Games, resumes tomorrow. This was posted on the 25th of September. The board voted unanimously to send a strike authorization to vote members back on September 1st. In a statement from the president, Fran Drescher, yes, the nanny, said it's time for video game companies to, quote, stop playing with games and get serious about reaching an agreement on this contract, end quote. Another quote, the result of this vote shows our membership understands the existential nature of these negotiations and that it is time for now these companies, which are making billions of dollars and paying their CEOs lavishly, to give our performers an agreement that keeps performing in video games as a viable career, end quote. So before we actually go into the actual comments and that we have about this, I did put a second article on here that I'm just quickly going to bring up as an example. This is also coming from IGN, written by Ryan Stinsdale. Metal Gear Solid voice actress Jennifer Hale said she was paid $1,200 for her Naomi Hunter role. Just for clarification, this was saying Hale was recorded as saying in a 2011 New Yorker article that Metal Gear Solid made $270 million, though said on the My Perfect Console podcast released this year on October 3rd, the figure I heard was actually $176 million. While the exact profit is unclear, the original Metal Gear Solid sold more than 7 million copies and is considered a monumental success that spawned a franchise that is still going 25 years later. She said that one of the things she wants is her desire for video game voice actors to earn residuals. If you don't know what residuals is, that's basically saying you paid us for our work, but if the game or the movie or the property sells a certain amount, that they should be sharing in the profits after a certain point. Just for example, if a video game sells 100 million copies, every copy after that, each person, voice actor or something like that, should be paid a percentage of the sales because they're actually making more money now. Yield, I'll go to you first and ask you your thoughts on the possibility of a strike and your thoughts on Jennifer Hale only making $1,200 for her role in such a landmark game.
Well, that was over 10 years ago, so you're kind of comparing apples to oranges, in my opinion.
It was 25 years ago.
Yeah, the game came out in 1998.
Okay. Well, I thought you said, okay. Either way, so that to me is a mute point. As for strike, you want to go on strike, go on strike. I really don't care because I don't make the type of money that they make, and I don't get the raises that they get, so I could care less. You want to go on strike, go on strike. You think you're getting paid unfair, whatever. That's just how I feel about it.
All right, Alex?
As far as the Jennifer Hale thing, I mean, it is, when you look at you think about the amount of money that's spent on video games to make video games, and you see that number, you think, man, that's a little low. But then again, we're not thinking back in 1998 when she did the role, when she did the voice work. So again, 25 years ago, it's a lifetime ago. So it's kind of hard to judge really how fairly she was paid unless, doing more research into, what was, livable wage back then and all that, and how much work she put in or how long she was there, how many hours she worked. But as far as the strike thing, look, I mean, yeah, if you think you're paid unfairly, and especially coming off the heels of the writer's strike, which just ended, something like this could always pop up because even I've heard in the past, wrestlers, independent contractors are covered by the Screen Actors Guild Award. And then you think that how many people are involved in video game voice work? I mean, we talked about Idris Elba earlier. So it's bound to happen. People, like I said, that's why one of the guys in the, I can't remember his name, but the person who was working for Telltale, talking about unionizing, it allows people to fight more effectively against, a workplace where they feel like they're not being compensated or treated fairly. But yeah, I mean, something like this doesn't surprise me that it's happening. Now, I don't work in history. I don't know what the pay is. I don't know how much people are getting paid. I assume it varies from project to project, from person to person. But in general, I don't really have a lot of comments to make as far as villainizing them or, saying that, oh, yeah, they don't get paid enough, or saying they do get paid enough. I don't really know how much they get paid. Obviously, they think they need to get paid more, and that's why there's the potential. There's not a strike, and they haven't called one, but there's the potential for one. But it just goes to show also that, we talk about video games as a more modern form of art now, and the amount of money that goes into hiring people to work for you, not just the developers and the coders and the sound team, but the people who, play a huge role in creating the characters and bringing the world to life. The actors, the mocap actors, the people like that, cost a lot of money. So yeah, you're definitely going to have to pay up, and this is just kind of one of those scenarios where it shows that how expensive game making is these days when you have a strike like this touching on the video game landscape.
All right, I'm going to qualify my statement. It's going to come out really shitty sounding, but I promise you that's not as bad as I'm going to make it sound in the start. I really don't give a shit that Jennifer Hale was only paid $1,200 for her role for Night Hunter. My attitude has always been that you signed a contract to get paid this amount of money. Now, because you see it was successful, you want more money. Well, if the game bombed, are you going to give back some of that money?
Well, I mean, residuals are a thing. They were a thing before this game came out in 1998, but you have to put that in the original contract, and you can't just come back,
that's my point, is that if the game does well, which it did, and, are you going to turn around and you want more money because the game did well, but if the game does shit and bombs, are you going to give back some of that money? You say, okay, listen, you pay me too much for the role? No, you're not going to do that. You're going to keep your money. You're going to go. She signed a contract. She got paid her money. Good for her. Now, with that all being said, I think there is an argument to say that if a game does so well, and especially like now where they are remastering the game or not remastering it, but re-releasing the game and coming out, I do believe you should be paid for your work because now it's gone onto a different property. If I took, I have the rights to use our intro and outro music I have written permission from the band and whatnot, but I have the permission to use that on the podcast. I can't just turn around and use that in another form and say that I'm fine. There has to be compensation somewhere. Jennifer Hale, I get what she's saying, that, she was paid a little bit, as Alex pointed out, that was 25 years ago. That may have been a justifiable rate at that time. I can't speak to that because I don't know what voice actors are getting paid. And it's only within, I say, the last maybe 5 to 10 years that we started really knowing the voice actors behind the games. Nolan North became a household name. Troy Baker became a household name. These are people that, they do a lot of work and they're paid because they know what they're doing and they're good at what they're doing. There's a lot. One of the characters in The Division, Aaron Keener, I am absolutely convinced that is Troy Baker doing the voice. But if you look up on any IMDb or in the credits, there's no voice actor listed. And I can't prove it, whatnot. Listen, if a game does extremely well, or it's getting re-released or remastered or whatever the case may be, I do believe some sort of payment should go to the original actor because now their voice and their likeness or their mocap is being used in a different property. Even though it's the same title, the same game, it's still being used separately from the original release of what the contract was. I believe there should be some kind of compensation, but as far as her only getting paid $1,200 in 1998, I'm sorry, I have no sympathy for that. You signed the contract, you do what you were getting paid, you agreed to do the job, that's where it stands. You can't then turn around and say, well, the game sold 7 million copies, pay me more. That doesn't fly with me.
The contract may have been built where they gave her the options like, hey, you can get this much money up front, a guarantee, or you can get so much paid per sale of the game. And maybe that person chose an upfront, payment, and it's like, I'm not going to risk this game not, being good or it's selling well, so I'm just going to take the upfront money. And then you see, all these years later, it sold a lot of money, and I would have made more money by going with deal B.
One of the things I heard, Robert Downey Jr., in the later movies, Marvel movies, he signed on for, I think it was a 10-picture deal, something like that. He made a cameo in, which basically means he made an 11th appearance, and he told the studio, said, pay me $2 million, and then give me a percentage of the sales after this. And that's how he got paid. And he did that. He said he did that to save the studio some money because obviously, RDJ at that time was a very expensive actor. But if that's in your contract and you deserve the residuals, get them. But I don't know how I feel about Jennifer Hale. Now, as far as the strike goes, I'm kind of with Yield. If you feel like you're not getting paid, or you're one of the things they're talking about, and I think we even talked about it in the show before, was like game companies using AI to do somebody's voice or whatnot. Fight for what you want. I'm in a union. Like I'm never gonna say, hey, the union should not be fighting for their workers. But I will say, you also have to understand that if you're going down this path, there is another simple solution, and them just turn around and saying, well, we don't need you anymore. We're going to go hire Joe Blow off the street that could do not as great as a job, but we could pay him 25% of what your asking rate is. So that it is what it is. All right, before I close out the show, Ro, I know I said that, you were going to speak. Before I close out the show, I just want to give you the opportunity, if you do want to say something, to say it before, because I don't want to completely silence you or censor you or anything like that.
I appreciate that so much. I don't have a comment at this time, but thank you.
Okay. With that being said, let's close out the show and do some shout-outs. Yield, we'll start with you, sir.
Shout out to Ro for coming on this evening. Shout out to Tricky and Alex for recording. Shout out to everybody who was hanging out in the chat tonight. And as always, shout out to all the pimps and madams of the whoredom. And shout out to my wife and sister-in-law who had birthdays this past week.
Alex, your shout out, sir.
Well, I want to give a shout out first and foremost to the listeners, our wonderful community, the fuel to the fire of this trophy horse. Without them, this podcast would not be, we wouldn't be at 592. We wouldn't be approaching 600. It would have died off a long time ago. So really, hold on. Sorry, Ashley is closing the garage door because she's going to pick up one of the kids from work. So it's noisy. Sorry, the room is right above our garage. So, but yeah, I mean, the community is really what's driven us, the gasoline in this engine, and they're what has pushed us forward. So as we approach a landmark episode of 600, we can look back and first and foremost thank them for all the support they've given us over the years and the continued support they give us to really drive us. Give a shout out to Yield and to Tricky, as well as to Matt, who could not be here this evening. But of course, the biggest shout out on the panel has to go to Ro. It's been a bit since we've had Ro on, but first of all, congratulations on the launch of Starfield and everything there. It's wonderful to see that game be so successful, especially after the hard work that the team put in, including yourself. But yeah, thank you for coming on, because 2.5 hours is a lot of free time to give up on a Sunday night.
Well, I just want to shout out all y'all. I always appreciate the invitation to run my mouth on the stuff that I am so passionate about, and to have such a great conversation with y'all is really, really a joy for me. Truly, it is. And I am just so thrilled and so excited for y'all to be creeping up on 600. It's a magical thing when you can get there. It's dedication. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of community building, and you guys have a great community. Thank you so much for inviting me to be a part of it, to be part of the celebration. Yay, 600 heart, y'all.
And I want to give a shout out.
Oh, Tricky, Wi-Fi.
I thought I was hoping to get you in the doghouse by not letting you, but go ahead.
Well, she shut the door, the garage door while we were podcasting. So
I know.
But I mean, she's got to get the car out. But last but not least, shout out to my loving and awesome girlfriend Ashley. I love you, hun. Tricky, I believe you have some shout outs as well.
Yes, I want to give a shout out to Sweet Mama D. Shout out to the Goddess. Shout out to everybody that joined us in the chat. Matt G, who obviously couldn't be here, but still joined us in the chat. We got Caneless. We got V. JT popped in here a little bit. Saber showed up. Just going through, and I think that's it. There's some other people that never say anything, like the Dark Knight 82. I see you, sir. I see you lurking. You could say something, say hi. Dex, obviously, and Ro is in the chat as well. Good to see somebody else on the show watching the Twitch chat other than me.
You know, I love, well, usually Matt does it, but I love that it's October. We're using words like creeping up on 600 and lurking in the chat. Make it sound kind of devious, demonic, lurking, creeping.
But yeah, shout out to everybody. 600 episodes. I'm not trying to tout my ego, but that is a monumental show. Like, that's
your ego.
That's 12 years of podcasting, and
shouldn't it be our egos?
Well, you guys have only done 500 episodes. I've done 600.
Oh,
well, actually, you did 550, right?
I don't know, something like that.
I'm joking. Obviously, I love my brothers. I consider them family, even though, brothers fight and they sometimes aggravate me, and I aggravate Yield to the point where he mutes me on PlayStation chat. But I still love him. 600 episodes, it's nothing to shake a stick at. We've doing this, that marks 12 years of podcasting, which is insane in this world. I can't believe we're doing this 12 years, but it's the community, which is obviously drives us, keeps us going. Every time I turn around, like, I feel like, somebody else is joining and getting involved, and I'm grateful for everybody. So unless there's nothing else, until next week, happy trophy hunting.
See ya.
Later.
Bye.